would kind of say we can't afford it. I think weigh up first what not having it means. And it even goes to the AI component, right? Can you actually take advantage of the AI momentum if you're not doing the foundational work around your data and governing it? So are you ever going to actually be able to do the things that we say AI can do, like save you money, make you more money, give you customer satisfaction? No. Exactly.
Yeah.
But then, so then which one is more expensive as a loss, right? And then, I think technology aside, you can create data stewards in every single one of your business units and make one of their core functionalities, help me drive a change in the business, a culture of data is important, number one, and how we use it is important. And you would already have started something that wouldn't necessarily have cost you extra money and would have been building extra awareness in your business.
I love that. Greetings and welcome back. This is the Sales Matter podcast. My name is Temba and I'm your host. Today I'm sitting with LeeAnne James, Data and AI Lead at Microsoft Africa. Mm-hmm. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for making time. I know you are always in the air, going somewhere,
like
making things happen, making data happen. Can I say making data happen?
Of course, even better. I like
making
that.
Data
my
happen.
New tagline.
Actually, I'm gonna trademark.
It's gonna make a good shirt. That
I can trademark that. Actually,
I think you should.
Before you do.
Damn.
Okay, please introduce yourself before we get our heads dirty. I would like you to share with us who you are, what you do, and how you do it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Firstly, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you and your listeners and viewers. So, as you said, I lead the data and AI business for Microsoft Africa, and essentially what that means is I'm getting down deep and dirty with customers across the continent, getting stuck into what their strategy looks like for executing against data to enable analytics, to enable AI, how to govern that data. And really I work across an ecosystem of different partners in our organization that we execute with. And I deal directly with customers, at different levels in the business. I guess you could call me a salesperson in a way, but I like to think of myself as a CDO whisperer. So a Chief Data Officer whisperer.
Okay.
I like to think of the person that comes in and helps them find the clarity of what they want to do next.
Okay.
And then execute against it.
I see. Okay, whenever you say the word data, it's like there's this bulb that lights up.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Is it your passion for data?
It is such a passion. I'm such a data nerd.
When did it start? When did this passion start?
So funny. Okay. I wasn't a data nerd. I didn't know I was a data nerd, shall I say. I was in project management and I was in very typical IT roles of managing different projects. And I got onto one project at my previous company, really focused on data, employee data, and it was quite a fascinating thing for me. And through this project, the person that was kind of the business sponsor invited me to come and work in their team. Okay. And I got exposed to SQL database. SQL database. So little SQL nerd over here. And the more time I was spending in it, the kind of more I was getting a little bit in love, and it really doesn't suit my personality. I get that. And then an opportunity kind of came up where I was being exposed more to the Microsoft world, licensing and things like that. And I kind of got my experience there. And then Microsoft poached me.
Okay.
And they put me in the data world. And I see. And I think just through the engagements with customers and being exposed to it, I got like really attached and deep. And I think it's because I had that moment probably 6 years ago as well. I had a moment when I realized how much data means. And it was kind of through my own personal experience of how someone was profiling me based on data.
How much does data mean? How much does data mean?
Everything. Like, think about your own personal experiences and think about how a vendor profiles you and then delivers that service to you based on that data. It's at the core of everything. It's gold. It's the new currency, right? It should be driving decisions. It should be giving you a reason to act a certain way. It should be how people are running their businesses because it tells a story. At the heart of everything, it tells a story. So I think it's a golden nugget. I can't even think of a better word for it than that.
Okay. I've got a follow-up question on that.
Yeah.
But before I get to that, let us start with putting everyone on the same page. It is very important to understand the data governance landscape.
Yeah.
Take us through that. How does it look like? I know you travel across Africa, different African regions.
Yeah.
How does that landscape look like?
So it's a great question, and I think it looks a little different depending on where you are in Africa, and of course the kind of customer that you're talking to and organization. But where I see kind of commonalities in the landscape when we're looking at what data and data governance looks like, it's a culture thing, number one, and I don't mean culture like I'm Kenyan or I'm South African. I mean it's a culture in an organization. So the importance of data is front and center, and so the culture of managing that data is front and center. So it's a culture of governance. Secondly, it's typically stewardship. So what do the different roles look like that focus on data, but as well as the governance of it?
Okay.
And then I think third is technology. That governance landscape is varied, right? We are fortunate to have many different technological advancements in this space that are available to us on the continent. Obviously including my own sort of ecosystem that I support. And I think it backs up a lot of what's managed through the first and the second. I think the next thing that's really important around that landscape is kind of process that defines what data governance is.
Okay.
Because it looks a little different depending on where you go to because of a customer's maturity, one, and I think two, their exposure to technology. You know, my earlier point, depending on where they are with that, normally defines that for them, what that looks like. Yeah.
100%.
So I think that for me, that sums up a data governance landscape. Really is those kind of key points. I think.
Okay. I guess my follow-up question then is: are you seeing that businesses out there are treating this as a matter of agency or not?
Absolutely, I am. In fact, I think I've even seen, you know, in countries outside of South Africa, they treat it with even more urgency than what I've seen locally. But I think a sense of urgency has come around because of two things. There's regulation. We know, you know, since the dawn of GDPR and the spin-offs in different countries that are relative to that. Locally, it's POPI and things like that. The need to govern data more intensely is obviously increased. And then secondly, I think because of this outburst of AI, particularly generative AI, I'm seeing a different urgency rising to the surface of managing data because we're seeing an increased volume of data kind of leaving the shores of our companies now. So I think there is a definite sense of urgency that I've seen, just slightly varied outside of South Africa. And I think it's also relative to the regulation that's, you know, in Nigeria as an example. They've got very strict regulations, stricter than what we've seen in our own country. And so they dictate a sense of urgency for things like governing your data.
What should be done when
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. What should be done.
So it's almost like compulsory.
It's 100% compulsory. I'm going to say this to the audience as well. Data governance, I hope when I leave, is going to be the message that it's going to be compulsory. It is compulsory, for sure.
Okay. You've thrown in AI, which is exciting, right?
So exciting.
Especially this generative AI space which we're finding ourselves in. I want to ask you this following question, and depending on how you answer it, we might actually continue or just end here with the podcast.
Oh, gosh. No pressure.
Would you say most organizations are fit for AI?
I don't know if this is going to be a popular answer, but I'm going to give you an honest one.
Yeah.
I would say no. I think if I did a statistical thing, I'd say like a 60-40. 40 being ready, 60 being not.
Is it?
Yeah. I'll tell you why, because I know that
sounds like our pass rate lately in some of our schools.
Let me add the caveats.
Just made it.
Let me add the caveat that I'm not giving that.
Which is bad. I know.
Okay. I'm not. I'm not giving it in the context of just being an African thing. I mean worldwide.
Yeah.
So Please don't take it that I'm saying, no, in Africa we're not ready. Not at all. I'm saying worldwide, the reason I think most organizations are not ready is because they didn't focus on the foundations. And the foundations is the data. Foundations is the governance of that data.
Okay.
I think people bought into the hype of an exciting thing. It's interesting because it's like AI is new, but it's not new. It's been around for like 50 years. Generative AI has kind of made people stand up and look at it different. And people wanted to leapfrog. It's like I'm seeing organizations are just jumping. They're like, oh, cool, we're going to go do this without the first step being, do I have the data to even do this? And so if I base it on that part of my comment, that's where I'm taking the not all organizations are ready for AI.
Okay.
Because they haven't done the foundational pieces yet. And I think we're still maturing in that space. Certainly what I see in Africa, but also some of Middle East, Central Europe, etc. as well.
Take us through that journey then. Take us through the journey of being AI ready.
Yeah.
Where should it start? This is where we are today as a business.
Yeah. So, I mean, it goes without saying, my previous comment sets the scene for where you start, right? It's your data. And that has got so many facets to it as it is. And I think governance is kind of the precursor to that step one as well. So it's almost like 1A, if we're going to go with school marks here. So 1A, it's not multiple choice.
Yeah.
It's fundamentals. The interesting thing is most people think data governance means just kind of managing who accesses my data where it is.
Yeah.
It's really not just that. Data governance is like first and foremost just discovering what data I have, which is then, I think, the foundational starting point. 1A is kind of understanding what data do I have, because, otherwise it's meaningless to even move to 1B or 2. We'll decide how we name it, which is governing that data. And I think that's going to be the foundational starting point. In order to build a cool, exciting AI use case, or even an AI use case you think is going to change society, life for the better, the way we engage.
Yeah.
You need to know what data is going to drive that AI application.
Yeah.
And so the starting point for me, I mean, I could write you about 12 if we need to, but I think I want to put the emphasis on the step ones of that data component, because I'm seeing so much of the leapfrogging. And, I'll tell you, my opinion is that the longevity of your AI use case is not based on how fast the technology changes or evolves. It's actually going to be defined by whether you took the right data into defining that use case.
Okay.
So that would be kind of my guidance around what I think is the starting point. Besides, and this is a shameless punt, looking at your skilling, learning, teaching.
Okay.
I think we have, you created a cool segue there when you mentioned the school marks, right? We have another big reason that a lot of our companies are not ready for it is because we don't necessarily have all the right skills in the market. We've not focused on these areas of things like data engineering, data management, etc. So.
Interesting point there. I want to ask you then the following question. Top 3 things you believe businesses are getting wrong when it comes to data governance.
Number 1 is not having a strategy for data governance, I think. If we put that aside, because it's probably the most fundamental problem, right, that they're getting wrong, is that they're not even focusing on the data governance. I think the lack of support from the top down, I think, in this world of technology, we often suffer from it's the cool things that get the most attention and the most exciting things. And so maybe technology departments are nervous to take these kind of asks to boards and executives to say, hey, I need you to kind of support my cause here. I need you to tell the business we are data governed and we're going to bed down on this, etc. Because it's like it doesn't catch the eye. But you need to have the top-down supports. And I've seen that as a gap, I think.
Okay.
Which would typically lead to the second gap. What they're getting wrong is kind of finding the tools to help you automate some of the process. Because if you think about trying to, whether you're hiring one person or four, right? And their sole job is to make sure that our data is secure, that we know what data we have, who's accessing it, what are we using for, et cetera, et cetera. Like that person's never going to breathe or see the light of day from their computer, right? And there are so many opportunities to use technology, I think, to do that job more efficiently and more effectively. And so I think that's the second, is a lack of consuming modern technology that can support these initiatives. The third, I think, for me is simply just not defining process of what you do if there is a problem in your governance, right? What's the next step then? If I do find, I found data I didn't know I have, what do I do with it? I found out someone's using the data they shouldn't be using or has access. How am I reacting? So I think those are kind of those top three for me, like not having that executive support, not leveraging the modern technology we have available, and then just having the policy to back it up. It's great if you have all the technology in the world. With zero policy, it's meaningless, really, in my opinion.
LeeAnne, I hear what you're saying, right? We've been doing this for 50 years. Why now? We've been going on for the past 50 years. We've never had the need for what you're saying. We've never seen gaps in our. We're fine. We're okay.
Mm-hmm. But are you? Is my question.
We think we're fine.
We think we're fine.
We think we're fine.
Yeah. So I mean, like, let me almost answer with like half questioning here as well, because I think it's an interesting point for us to debate on. You know, if I'm a bank and I know I'm collecting so much information about a person that's banking with me across multiple products, right? Let's say I've got vehicle finance with you, a home loan, a credit card, an overdraft. Gosh, I hope not both, and a savings account and a check account, right? There's a lot that you're collecting about me.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I'm managing that data properly and who's accessing it. Am I actually being a responsible bank then? Am I treating you as my customer fair? Probably not, right? Secondly, if a regulator walks in and they find your gap, it's going to be a lot harder to claw back than being proactive. I think 50 years ago as well, you know, we weren't collecting data like we do now. Let's be honest. Technology has advanced itself significantly.
Yeah.
You weren't engaging with your bank or your doctor or an airline via an app on your phone. Your phone, you didn't have a mobile phone. You know, it wasn't collecting information about where you move around, what you searched for on a map app, etc.
Yeah.
There's just data that exists today that didn't exist 50 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever the case is. It just didn't exist. And there wasn't regulation that like said, you better manage this or you're going to see the long arm of the law, right?
Okay.
So I think that would be my response to customers who are like, oh, but we've been good. But have you?
But now it sounds to me, and going back to Morocco, Egypt, Nigeria, and all the other countries which are in the forefront, you know, leading in this data governance space and stuff, it sounds to me that the situation is that businesses then treat data governance as a means to get or meet regulatory requirements. Is that the case? Should there be, or is there another motivation why business should be doing it besides we don't want to get into trouble?
I mean, that's a good point you raise. I think the initial knee-jerk reaction from organizations was just that, right? And that's fair to say. Like, regulation says I need to do the following, so I better protect myself against that. And I don't think it's right or wrong, but there are so many other opportunities. You know, again, I go back to foundationally with data governance. It's not just managing how that data is accessed and if it's private, etc. But if you think about the way I manage the data and I make sure that it's secure, is I discover it. And I think therein kind of lies the magic. And there's potentially what the other motivators should be. If you know what data you actually have, you could probably reimagine a couple of other use cases or opportunity for your business that you didn't think about.
Yeah.
Because you just didn't realize. I don't think that telcos, as an example, and I work with a couple of them across the continent, I don't think they realized the value in data that they were collecting around just your movement with your cellular phone, like pinpointing different spots where you are. And think about what that looks like when you think of adding a value to data, how they could reuse that or sell that kind of data. Where do I see the most foot traffic? If you think of a retailer, I might want that data to know where I want to put my next retail store, right? Because so I think that for me is the hidden missed opportunity, is by looking at kind of an overarching data governance program. Part of what you're going to do is discover what you have.
Yeah.
And then, of course, fundamentally protecting yourself for that and your consumers, I think, is important.
Okay. Is there an opportunity for us to make this more practical?
For data governance?
Data governance especially. In the automotive space?
In the automotive space?
Ah.
Interesting. I think it could be.
Okay.
That's a really interesting question, actually, because I haven't had as much exposure as I probably would to the automotive. But, I mean, if we think about there as well, again, cars are evolving. They're collecting so much data. I mean, think of IoT concepts in automotive. I think that would be quite interesting. I think now that we've got cars that have conversations with us via our, hey, BMW, hey, Mercedes, hey, whatever. I mean, I would imagine making data governance more practical in the automotive industry. Wow, you gave me a spinball question now. It'll be a good one for me to think of how I answer.
Maybe we should do it together.
I think so.
We must bring in an R&D, get some R&D budget, put in an R&D team.
I mean, I think
see how
so.
far that can go.
I think that would be a good paid project for us. I mean, my question would be: are they even governing their data and what that looks like? I would almost argue, even more so, they should be focusing on it, because of how much information they're collecting from our cars, right? And they're all connected.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it would be an interesting strategy to write, especially for the working class who spend most of their day in their car. That's a good question that you gave me there.
It is, right? Yeah, something to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, something to really think about.
And I think the reason it's such a good question as well is like the AI opportunities in automotive are exciting as well. And by default for me, I always say, the minute you're mentioning AI, please make sure you're adding governance to the conversation.
Yeah.
And the data component.
Which I feel like it's not the case at the moment.
No, it's not. And that's like, part of the point I was kind of trying to make earlier is it is exciting. And I'm excited as well. I'm a data nerd. So for a data nerd, AI is exciting because it's someone consuming my data for something, other than reports or dashboards, which most people think is all we do with data, which it's not.
Yeah.
So it's exciting, and I don't think anybody wants to curb it. And I myself represent the AI business for Microsoft across Africa as well. But I also don't want to be with customers on the other end of the conversation where they're like, well, this wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And I mean, when they've taken something to production, and it's because we didn't do, step 1A and B as an example.
Yeah.
We didn't go and make sure we discovered all the data we could push into this use case, and then, make sure we were putting it in a governed manner somewhere where it could kind of be accessed. So, yeah, I think, gosh, the emphasis of 1A and B, I can't say enough. Because, since Gen AI kind of last year, beginning of last year, there was this huge sort of launch of ChatGPT and as, OpenAI. And, of course, we have our own very close relationship with OpenAI. And you can get your own version of ChatGPT kind of running on cloud with Microsoft, like it was an influx of people doing things and building things. And then 3 months later, it just wasn't getting to production. And so I think retrospectively, us in the market were kind of looking back and going, what happened though? Because everyone, and they still are, right? Everyone's so excited. Everyone's talking about building a Copilot, building a GPT of some sort. So what changed? Why did it not ever make it to, the consumer? I mean, I'm a consumer and I know the customers. They were working on things and I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
And it came down to that. Believe that or not. And I know I'm a data nerd and I admit it. And so maybe you won't believe me. But as a data nerd, I feel like I'm a little bit of an expert in that.
Yeah.
It came down to just not having the right data or governing how it was being used by the generative AI, large language models, etc. And so when it got to security, they were like, whoa, hold on. You want to do what now? You want to put it where? You want to bring what data in? Which is interesting that security professionals are the ones that are kind of highlighting that more than the data professionals, yeah.
100%. I want us to put on your CDO hat.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. So you're no longer a data nerd for a minute. We're coming to you now as CDO, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. What would you be doing as CDO today?
For AI?
For everything.
For everything.
For everything.
Yeah, I think like first things first, I'd be stopping the bus for anything that wasn't focused on data and AI, which is I know it sounds like I'm copping out now, but I think no, in all seriousness, right?
Okay.
Chief data officer, and I'm fortunate I get to speak to a lot of them in my day-to-day work, and I can hear the things that keep them up at night. I think the first thing would be to establish hype versus reality for AI.
Hype versus reality.
Correct.
Okay.
Because there is
get off dreamland.
Yeah. Like there is so like we've just spoken about it on and off, but there's amazing hype about AI. There is a lot that AI can do and a lot it can change. But there is also a lot that it can't do. It does have limitations, right?
Based on the data which you feed.
Correct, exactly. But even just, and maybe 20 years from now, who knows? You can't teach AI empathy. It can display what it thinks is empathetic. It's not empathetic by nature, right? It's not, because it doesn't have a feeling. You can teach it to be funny as well, by the way, but it's not humorous, if that makes sense. So, there's that component which I think is important. For me personally, I want to make sure that people aren't, part of removing the hype, Temba, is like people see robots in their head, or they see a lot of things happening in our US markets where, jobs are being replaced with automation and AI. And, it's never going to go. The human element, like at the end of the day, we still control the plug. I always try to tell people. So I think part of removing sort of the hype is also kind of bringing people back down to earth and reminding them what AI is. And we're using technology to make humans more effective and efficient, not replace them. So I kind of would, I think, deal with that first, is the hype versus reality. And
I like that, actually.
I think that's a grounding factor that people need to kind of focus on.
Yeah.
And when I say versus reality, there are a million use cases we could think of. You and I could sit here for another hour filming, and we would think of so many different use cases where we could inject AI. And you could take it from a professional or a personal standpoint, right? I mean, who wouldn't want a robot freaking PA? I certainly would. Definitely to do the driving. So autonomous cars, right?
Yeah.
But in reality, so when I've taken the hype away of, this is exciting and we need to do this, reality is, what's actually going to change the needle for my business? Like, is it going to improve my efficiency, effectiveness, operations, customer satisfaction? Am I going to make more money or save some money, right? Kind of, I think that would be my starting point. Once you've established that, the hype versus reality, and you get people kind of thinking through this clearly, by no means stopping the creativity. I think the next act as CDO would be educating, all levels down.
Okay.
I touched very earlier on about skilling. It's a passion of mine. I think we have gaps. We're not putting enough attention and focus and money into learning in this space.
Okay.
And we really should. I mean, the few people we do have, by the way, as certified data engineers and data stewards and data scientists, they get poached out of this country. It's like one of the
That's always the case, though.
Always, I know,
Yeah.
but it's like the most underpenetrated market right now. Like you will find a job if you're a certified data engineer. I can guarantee it. You'll come in high demand. So, number two would be skilling the people in my organization as a CDO. And it doesn't mean they're all learning technical, but again, they might be able to learn hype versus reality.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
And then I think third is kind of rejigging, making sure there's a strategy that takes those fundamentals into consideration. The fundamentals being, my data, where is my data? What data do I have? How am I managing it? How am I governing it? Who's accessing it? Am I using it for the right things? What data is important actually? And then I would hope after those 3 steps, the board would be like, unlimited budget, go wild. And I just build this amazing new strategy and get all the best tech I could and get my robot PA.
And I'm glad you talked about the board and budget and stuff, because one of my guests here talked about something similar, and they said, the CDO today should never stop fighting for that seat on the table.
Yeah.
So what's your take on that? Because
I agree. Yeah.
it's one thing to have a desire to want to do something, but it's another if you've got limitations.
True. Yeah, and I think it's a challenge that I'm seeing more locally than I am internationally. I think they're a bit more mature in the space, realizing the value and the role of the CDO, or the CAO as well. Now we have chief analytics officers as well.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I've seen in Africa though.
Okay.
What I've seen is where a CDO, and we have a really great company, a strong retailer in South Africa that's getting this so right. They have a CDO/CAO person, and you know who he reports to? The CEO. The CEO. Because the CEO has understood the importance of the role he plays, right? He doesn't just manage a team that does dashboards or data security or whatever the case may be. He's the heart and soul. That same retailer is doing groundbreaking things in markets that are not even retail, right? They're going to change the landscape of data monetization. And I'm really hoping that the person that that I'm talking about is going to be one of your next guests. And I think you guys are going to have an amazing conversation, and he'll be able to tell you more about it.
Yeah.
And then I've seen where the CDOs are reporting into the IT team. And I'm not saying it's wrong or a bad thing. I'm just saying that's not the place for them. And the reason is, if you think of a chief information officer as an example, they're not all about tech, right? They're normally on the executive boards, right? They're normally sitting in Exco. They play a very similar role. As a chief data officer, you're going to be the gap, or the stopgap, I should hope, between business and technology.
Okay.
A chief data officer should be able to articulate a business requirement into something that's tangible, in technology. But they understand data. So they could also kind of remove the whole, what we're talking about, hype versus reality, but they can kind of question the effectiveness of a proposed use case, as an example. So I think we've got work to do in this space. I think that there is lessons for us to learn from outside of our shores, and even in our shores, where they're getting it right. Like I would urge customers to go and follow those companies, whether it's LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram, whatever.
Okay.
And you will see where they have a solid seat at the table, and what they have to say and offer is valued. What those organizations are busy doing, they're like digital transformation on steroids, right?
Mm.
Businesses that turned around in 3 years and suddenly became a cool brand, as an example, or, effective, or increased their consumer base by 60%. Chief Analytics and Data Officer reports to the CEO.
That's amazing.
Right?
That's amazing.
But there's a differentiator. Where they report to IT, I wouldn't say they're not doing great things. Please, don't get me wrong. I think what happens, though, is they very often get bogged down in the technology projects rather than being able to go surface new opportunities with the business and execute that down. I feel they should sit next to the CIOs, and they should be inseparable from each other. So, yeah.
Yeah, what you're saying, love what you're saying. We just can't afford it.
It's a reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is where I kind of humble down a bit about some of this, because I work in Africa. And, when we met, we had this conversation. We have unique challenges on our continent as well, where there are other things that are more important for a lot of businesses. In some of our countries on the continent, it's just literally just trying to stay afloat. This would be my rebuttal, I think, is, what would the cost be if you leaked something super... Let's not even go personal information.
Okay.
You leaked something that was super important about what makes you different to your business's competitors, right? Your own competitors. What would be the monetary value you would put on that? Purely because you just weren't paying attention to the important things. Because I'm willing to bet it would cost more.
Mm.
Number one.
Mm.
The second thing is, I don't think it has to be an expensive, elaborate thing. I mentioned technology. There is so many options out there. And I think it caters for different budget sizes. But if you go back to what I was saying about sort of the landscape and what some of those fundamentals are, you could already make changes by just making sure you got executive support, driving a culture of governance, teaching your people that when you're interacting with something, you're interacting with someone's data, it's a meaningful thing. It's not just a line in a database
100%.
or a table. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or an email header. And I think and just policies. So I would kind of say we can't afford it. I think weigh up first what not having it means. And it even goes to the AI component, right? Can you actually take advantage of the AI momentum if you're not doing the foundational work around your data and governing it? So are you ever going to actually be able to do the things that we say AI can do, like save you money, make you more money, give you customer satisfaction? Exactly.
Yeah.
But then,
so
then which one is more expensive as a loss, right? And then, I think technology aside, you can create data stewards in every single one of your business units and make one of their core functionalities, help me drive a change in the business, a culture of data is important, number one, and how we use it is important. And you would already have started something that wouldn't necessarily have cost you extra money and would have been building extra awareness in your business.
I love that. The cost of doing versus the cost of not doing, which one is more expensive? I think that's a question which businesses should be asking themselves out there.
I agree.
The cost of doing something versus the cost of not doing it.
Exactly.
Because many times we think the cost of doing is
more, right?
It's more. But the reality is that the cost of not doing many times is actually
even more so. Exactly.
That's a very good point. And I wish someone, even if someone watching this, that they don't take everything we talked about.
Take that one thing.
I just wish they just take that one thing. The cost of
That's
doing
it.
Versus the cost of not doing.
I'm going to look your listeners and your viewers in the eye again then and say it.
Yeah.
It's another thing we're putting on a T-shirt.
Right?
The cost of
doing
versus not doing. Which one is more, going to hurt the pocket more of the business? And I don't just mean financially. Actually, it's also your growth. Because I promise you.
I love that. Because many times we think cost from just a monetary perspective, right? But it's not that. It's also market share. It's reputation.
It's reputation.
It's so many things.
I can promise you, you know, your competitors are probably doing something. You know, I get to stand in this kind of circle of like 160 odd customers around Africa where there's different customers competing in the same industry. And I kind of have to stand and have that moment where if this kind of conversation comes up, and I know the conversation I had with their direct competitor the day before was different, right? Like I can't share that information. That's their journey.
Of course you can't.
But
yeah.
it's the same point, right? That market share, etc. I'm willing to bet anybody out there that does the cost of doing versus not doing is gonna see it's gonna cost you way more to not focus on these things. And I think, I think a lot of our customers and our organizations think it's expensive because it sounds like it's a fancy thing to be doing, right?
Yeah.
It sounds complicated. It sounds legal. It sounds all those things. I think you'll find once you dive deeper into it, and I look forward to unpacking this with you in your symposium that you're planning.
Yeah.
You could probably find an option for every budget for an organization.
I love that.
You know what I mean?
I love that.
I think so. But we're
Yeah.
going to put that one on a T-shirt too. We're going to leave with a whole clothing range, you and I think, at this rate, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree.
We're putting trademarks on everything.
The Sales Matter podcast retail, whatever.
Stores opening in 2 months' time.
Store opening in 2 months' time. I love the fact that you brought the symposium, up for discussion and stuff. So for those who don't know about this, is that in July we will be hosting like a 2-day data governance and cybersecurity symposium where LeeAnne will be joining us as our favorite speaker, really.
With the T-shirt.
With the T-shirt. Yeah. So all we're wanting to do really is to bring in different industries to delve deep into these concepts, because we believe learning is much fun when you do it with others.
Yeah,
like we used to do it in high school, like we
Yeah.
used to do in university.
Yeah, exactly.
It made more sense when you were kind of in group discussions, sharing ideas. So the symposium is exactly about that. We're wanting to bring CDOs, data professionals, IT professionals into one space and tackle this, these challenges which are actually standing, in front of us that we have to deal with on a daily basis. So yeah, hopefully we'll get to see most of you in July. Thanks for bringing that up.
It's a good plug, right?
It is actually.
I mean, I love the idea of doing it. I shared this with you, obviously.
Yeah.
Off camera as well. We don't talk enough about the stuff, so I think you're creating a good foundation to allow different professionals to speak to each other as well, share their lessons learned. And hopefully help kind of create a better awareness and I hope a community that will support each other going forward.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I want to build this data governance community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll make it cool again. I think when we say the word governance, people get scared, right? They think of very specific people, types of people or roles.
I believe so.
I think that's what
You're right.
is,
You're actually right.
We need to demystify the fact that we're not we're not auditors in that sense, and we're not it's not like we're lawmen coming in. But that's important. We can make it cool too. We can make data governance cool, I think.
I love that. And that can also go.
That can also go, and
Yeah.
I mean, I think you said something interesting, last week as well. You put it in an interesting way. I'm going to say you don't know what you don't know, but you put it in a different way. And I think it will probably come to one of us.
I wish he recorded me.
I wish we had recorded too. My God.
Yeah, I wish we got that discussion we had.
Such a great conversation.
Yeah, it was lovely.
I think it was something along the lines of you don't know where you're going if you don't know.
Wait, I've got it here.
It's coming?
Okay, it's coming.
Great.
It's coming. In fact, I wanted to ask you that as a follow-up question, right? If you don't know where you're going, you'll end up somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I wanted us to bring that into this data governance space.
Yeah.
And hear from you. How would you'd bring that to life?
Yeah.
In this space and this topic that we're talking about.
I love it, by the way.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to remember it.
Yeah.
I think going back to like what we were saying now, it becomes more relative. You need to know what the end game is. And you can only know the end game if you know where you're coming from.
Yes, 100%, 100%.
And I think that kind of rings true to that saying of yours. So, like, how do you know what you're going to want to do from an advanced analytics, AI, whatever, data sciencey things, you're going to do if you don't know what foundation you're coming off of? I think one of the things I maybe didn't touch on enough, and so this is maybe a good time to bring it up, is the quality of data.
Okay.
The absolute quality of data.
Data that we can use.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you only get to that point of knowing that when you've done that data discovery and that deep diving. Governance is such a broad term to add to something, but all of these are kind of bundled under that.
100%.
But it goes back to that, right? It's the foundational components of X, Y, and Z. And data quality is fundamental. Because, again, garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yes.
I could have the best technology in the world.
I'll tell you the story of the garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yeah.
When I was at university, we were doing C++.
Oh.
Yeah. It's quite funny because we're doing a project, and because I thought I was smart, I believed I was smart, I thought, okay, I'm going to do Pacman. I'll do my own version of Pacman, all right?
Oh, please tell me you still have it.
But my Pacman was funny because he was going into the other direction.
Really? He wasn't following the directions?
He wasn't following the direction, and my hand was always up, right? What's happening? My Pacman is doing something fun. I don't understand. I want him to go this way. He's going this way, type of a thing. And I remember our lecturer at that time introduced me to that concept of garbage in, garbage out. He said, you must always keep in mind the way the code runs is because of what you put in.
Yeah.
So if the code is running like this, it's possibly because you need to go back.
Yeah.
And in those days, we knew nothing about this AI where you could have a Microsoft Copilot show you where you missed a comma or a semicolon or a whatever, right?
Yeah.
You had to go back and like, where is it?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So it's quite interesting because from that time I never...
It's hilarious. I have to see it. I hope you still have a copy.
So my code was running like that because my Pacman was running like that because of how actually...
The code, yeah.
Yeah, I actually did the coding. So it's very important for businesses also to kind of understand that the outcome which you get is because of the
input, right?
Of the input.
Exactly.
You are possibly where you are because of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Or what you're not doing, for that matter.
Yeah.
I thought I should add on that.
Yeah, I think it's a great story. I really have to see this Pacman. I really hope that you put this part on the recording so that I have a whole audience to keep me to it. And I think there's so many variables we can chuck around about that, right? But like in the sense of data quality, like I was saying, you can have like the most amazing technology, and it will be meaningless if what we chuck into it is not legit. Like if we think of a real world example, like think of autonomous cars, because we were talking about like automotive earlier. If you think of if they put garbage data, our dear Elon Musk, we'll claim a bit of ownership there now. And he'd put that cart with a human being in it, it's very unlikely it would have made it from A to B. And it probably didn't in the beginning, right? It probably didn't. Because the data he was feeding into the algorithm was meh, or not enough, right?
Yeah.
Or if you think of like a retailer, if I wanted to do something like a next best offer, which is so data-driven, right? So I want to know what I'm going to offer LeeAnne or Temba. Like, when you check out of a cart, oh, you forgot this, or would you be interested in this? Like, if all I was feeding it was how often LeeAnne shops, you're not going to get anything.
So you want to do AI in real time?
Real time.
Yeah, 100%.
You need quality data to do that. Proper quality data. Like, if you think of OpenAI, if we go back to AI, it was trained on the internet, essentially. It was trained on the internet. It was years of training before they took that to a point of public, announcements. It trained on the internet. That is so much information. There was a level of quality control that had to be applied there, right? And still is.
I love that.
Let me add, I think, because another thing that is important when we talk about hype versus reality. AI can hallucinate. I don't know if you've experienced that as well. It can think up answers, right? And you can make it hallucinate. You can actually force it. If we think of generative AI, again, it's because there's a level of data quality that's missing.
Yeah.
And intentionality. And so I think, especially for now with generative AI and customers that are wanting to use that, organizations that want to release their own versions of bots or chat with their own data, that component of the data governance is going to be even more fundamental. That quality of the data that you're pumping in is going to define the experience on the other side, whether it's a bot or whatever it is, right? Whatever that looks like to you. The data quality piece. I should have mentioned that one earlier. It's even more important.
I love that. And
I think that goes to garbage in, garbage out. It's like,
yes.
Come on.
I love that.
If we put nonsense in, we're going to get nonsense out, right?
100%. We're not sleeping here, right? We're not sleeping on the studio.
Oh.
At some point, we've got to...
I'll just sit here all day. I think we should have a radio station next.
Okay.
I'm just saying, we're going to take over the world, you and I.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I really, really appreciate that. But we can't give our audience everything at once.
No, we need it to come back.
So I believe that there will be more insight shared at the Symposium in July.
For sure.
Around these concepts, which I can't wait.
Yeah, exciting.
Yeah. They are definitely something that's exciting. We've got a great lineup really of speakers from both public
amazing.
And corporates. So it's going to be wide range of speakers.
Yeah.
So I want us to start wrapping up.
Yeah, sure.
And I want to ask you two last questions. Then we'll still have to do a karaoke, right? We're gonna.
Of course. Oh, okay. Yes, that's right.
Yes.
But then I'm like grabbing.
We have to do a Groove Washington.
Okay.
When
it's a deal.
When we're done. Yeah. Okay. My second last question is: what are the top 3 questions business leaders should be asking themselves today? Business leaders.
Yeah.
Three top questions.
3 top questions.
Mm-hmm.
What am I doing that my competitors aren't?
Okay.
And flip it either way you want, right? What am I doing or not doing that my competitors are or aren't doing? Because I think it speaks to your opportunity. Number 2, do I value my data enough? Have I got the right people looking after it?
Okay.
Paying attention to it? Do I know what I can do with it and the opportunities? And I think 3rd, what can I learn? What can I learn from others?
Okay.
Because I think there's enough information available to us now.
Okay.
For us to not be able to claim ignorance with complete comfort.
I love that.
So yeah, I think that would be the 3 questions I would say they should definitely be asking.
100%. LeeAnne, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was really an honor having you. I'm looking forward to, I look forward to you packing me into a suitcase as I travel across Nairobi.
Yes.
And Kampala, all this nice.
I'll share my trip itinerary.
Nice. Yeah, you have to. But there's one last thing I want us to do. This is you speaking directly to the audience, right? LeeAnne's last words, final words, anything you think our data practitioners, data governance professionals, data governance leaders should keep in mind at all times. You look directly into their eyes so they can see this is serious.
Because I'm talking to you.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I think my final words would be, in this era of AI and exciting advancements in technology, remember the fundamentals of managing your most important assets. And in that case, it's data. So do the cool things, do the fun things, do the exciting things, but do your due diligence first. Make sure you lay the right foundations so that you don't have to roll back something, or you don't get to see it go to production and see the fruition of your hard labors. So take the time, I think, to focus on the foundations, tick the right boxes, and make sure your data is a good quality.
Lovely.
I think that's it.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
And I even used my hands.
Yeah, that's
it
great.
Was serious.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah, I could see in your face that it was serious. Yeah.
My children know when I get serious, I use my hands when I talk to them.
Right.
So when they watch this podcast, they're going to be like, "Oh, you went into mom mode with the audience."
Yeah, 100%. So this is the fun part. We have to do. The karaoke is going to be part of the recording. We're not taking it out because we want this to be fun.
Yeah.
Like you said, making data governance fun. It doesn't have to sound. It doesn't have to sound like code.
Exactly.
So to my lawyer friends out there.
Hey, they're becoming cool too. I mean,
I think they are.
I think they're going to use AI more than we are too.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we're gonna do just the two of us.
Okay.
We can make it if we try. Just the two of us. So I'm gonna go. Just the two of us. Then you'll do.
We can make it if we try.
Then we come back together and say
the
just the two of us. Then we're done.
Got it.
Right?
We looking there or here?
No, we can look at each other, eye to eyes.
Eyes to eyes.
That moment now.
We're getting deep here.
Is that moment, you know?
Okay.
The moment of truth.
There we go.
Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Just the two of us.
We can make it if we try.
Just the two of us.
You and I.
You and I, yes. I forgot that part.
Me too.
Thank you so much. And there you have it. That's the Sales Smarter podcast. I hope you enjoyed that. We're looking forward to seeing you at the Symposium. Be on the lookout for the next episode. Cheers for now.